Excellent. Well, hey, like I said, big thank you to everyone for jumping on here. Like I said, we are going to be recording today's webinar. Andrew Quirk is going to kick us off with covering a few slides, and then we'll dive into the demo portion of our agenda. As a quick note, if you guys do have any questions throughout the webinar, please go ahead and type them in the chat. We'll be addressing those throughout the session, and then we'll have some time at the end of our uh, portion together that will address any additional questions that we may have. So, with that said, Andrew, I'll hand things off to you. Excited for what we're about to see here.
Thanks, Jerry. Appreciate that. And today we're going to be covering how you can manage exemption certificates within the Avalara portal with the connection to Smarter Commerce. Then speak to how Avalara has built in AI as well in the process. Just some housekeeping, of course, safe harbor. What we cover today is Avalara's property, and what you see today is obviously we want you to take advantage of, but it'll be recorded. But please don't disseminate this information without permission from us. And here's the agenda, real quickly about who Avalara is, what we see our customers and businesses have in regards to challenges around managing exemption certificates, managing those customers, maintaining their certificates, why that's difficult, how the Avalara solution can help you. And as Jerry said, we'll actually get in and I'll show the live environment within Avalara. And then, Paul with Smarter Commerce can actually show, some functionality in JD Edwards as well. And then, of course, we'll have time for Q&A. But as Jerry noted, by all means, put questions in the chat. And, if you see them, Jerry, and they're applicable, just let me know. This is who I am. Been at Avalara over 10 years. I've had a few roles in that time, but my current role as a consultant is to make sure our exemption certificate management solutions align to our customers' business needs. So, worked with many, many businesses over the years, different industries, different revenue bands. So, talk about this topic all day long, every day. So, happy to be here today and share what I'm seeing with you all. And quickly, high level, Avalara has significant experience in sales tax, and we've proven our ability to deliver customer success, but we are a global end-to-end sales tax compliance solutions vendor. We have over, 19 different solutions. We've been doing it for, 2 decades now, but a global company, millions of sales tax returns filed, millions of billions of Avatax tax engine API calls and 40,000 plus customers. So this is definitely something that we've been focusing on becoming the most compliant, fastest, easiest, accurate, more reliable, and more valuable than any other alternative when it comes to maintaining your sales tax compliance. What I'm seeing today in the landscape, we'll cover now just the customer challenges and without maintaining certificates with your exempt customers, keeping them up to date, it can be a burden, and it definitely can provide serious risk to the company. Like, just an example of this graphic here will show it can be a huge cost to your business and missing a certificate. And I'll click here through here so we can see the graphic here. But basically, what we're showing here is a sample. But in my experience, when you get audited, the states will come knocking and they'll audit you over like a 3-year period, for example, and they won't look at every single invoice you did in that time frame. They just look at a sample set, and in the sample set, they look at the say 30 invoices, for example, or 1 month. Hypothetically, it can vary, but they'll look at the sales you did and they'll see, well, you did $1 million in sales in this time frame, but you're only taxing against 50% of your customers. This other 50%, this would be our state's money, whatever it is. In California, this is 50% of your sales. You're not charging tax. That's our money. Well, why wouldn't you do that? And you're like, well, we have a network of nonprofits or manufacturers or government agencies or resellers. We don't charge that tax. So that's up to you to prove that you have good exemption certificates on file at the time of that invoicing. And this is just the graphic just gives an example. They'll look at that sample and they might find an error rate in that sample. Maybe you didn't have a certificate and the auditor found that, well, in this alone, it should have been $1,200 in tax. So they just don't, bill you for $1,200. They take that error rate and they apply it over the whole period. So that's why the penalties and interest and the back due tax that is due can really multiply because it's just based on a sample that they take and then apply it towards the entire time frame of that audit. So, to conclude there, we've seen missing a certificate can be tens and thousands of dollars in a cost by not having it. So the component of, understanding the basics of, tax exemption certificates, like I mentioned before, you probably going to have tax exempt customers. They may be exempt for, different reasons, for example. And it's based on the ship to state. So if they're based in New York, but you happen to ship to Florida, you need to have their Florida certificate. So there's complexity around that. The states are different, the forms are different. Like it says, it must be issued from the correct form. There must be a reason, right? Are they a reseller or a nonprofit? All that varies and changes the forms you should be receiving. And of course, you want to have a valid exemption certificate when you receive it. So it's not just as simple as your customer telling you they're tax exempt and you just say, okay, we're not going to charge you tax. The onus is really on you to make sure you're doing it in a compliant way. And these are the typical steps, businesses take. First identifying your customer is exempt. Do you just trust them? Do you have any kind of, internal audit when you onboard a customer? Are you asking up front if they're tax exempt, or do you wait till you charge them tax on an invoice and they come back to you 3 months later and they short paid you, right? So the concept is you want to get this up front. Not only do you want to understand if they are exempt, of course, you have to collect the certificate. Who's doing that? I talk to businesses all day long, and a lot of the onboarding is, left to the sales or the customer services team. Like, are they experts in collecting certificates? Do they know what to look for? And then number three there, when you get it back, how do they know it's valid? Typically you're trying to get the sale done as quick as possible. Are you really vetting the certificate? Of course, and then when you have it, are you able to store it? Can you access it when needed? Are you able to maintain it? Do you know when it expires? So that's why it's so challenging. It's not just trust your customer. They send you a piece of paper and you charge, you exempt them from tax. It's far more complex to that. I mean, and that, quite frankly, that's a reason Avalara has been in business for over 2 decades. If this was easy, we would understand the service there is not needed. And then continuing on, why it's so difficult. There's generally, and I just kind of covered this, there's generally an understanding of just lack of awareness. I don't have to worry about sales tax because I don't charge tax. I'm a manufacturer. Well, might be true, but you have to have proof. You have to have proof on why you didn't. Like the California example I gave earlier, you absolutely don't have to charge tax to your tax exempt customers, but you have to do it in the compliant way. The compliant way that the states expect you to do it in, or even provincial in Canada, right? They expect you and understand that you have the certificate at the time of invoicing. That's the compliant way to do it. Every state's different, like we said, depending on what the business is, resale, nonprofit, that changes the complexity of the forms. So it's just typically understanding, from the beginning in the onboarding process, just having lack of awareness on A, who your customers are, and then what it looks like in regards to, maintaining the certificate. And you may be requesting certificates, but your end customer, might be blowing it off. Well, I'm tax exempt. I'm a reseller. You've never charged me tax. You onboarded me 10 years ago, hypothetically. Why does this matter now? Well, they might push back on it, but it's not their call. The burden is on you. They're not going to get audited on why they were exempted from tax. You will. So the proof really lies on you, the seller, who you're invoicing, because if you don't have it up front, that's what the states expect. And also, you want to give your frontline employees, like your customers that are doing, I mean, sorry, your users, your internal staff that are doing the customer onboarding, like how you onboard a customer. Typically, there might be an onboarding process where you might need other business forms for them or a credit application or whatnot. And that's usually where I see businesses work in the exemption certificate. As part of that application, you ask up front, are you tax exempt? That way, you don't have to deal with billing issues down the road. They're tax exempt in this specific state because you have the certificate, and it just gives you peace of mind and the ability to be more efficient in managing these tax exempt customers, and then maintaining their certificates, on an ongoing basis. And of course, that's all reliant on you as the business to do it internally. Like you have to manage this internally when you have these tax exempt sales. And here's an example of the management that's required. We kind of covered this, but your staff might not be up to speed on this. They may not be used to working this into the customer onboarding process, right? It might be where you've always done it after the fact, but you don't want to do that. It's going to save you time and efficiency up front. And then the employees that are doing it internally, have they been properly trained? Do you have an internal team that has your own business workflows down? Have you built this into your internal accounting processes? That is what goes into it. And you really have to look at it on a business by business scenario on who internally manages this for you and how compliant are you doing it now. So just evaluating your process now. And then in addition to that, they have to validate them. Who's doing that for you? Do you trust your team to do it? I find a lot of businesses don't really have a validation process. They just trust, that your end customer is sending you what's applicable, but that is not always the case. So validation is huge. You want to validate it's the appropriate state. It's the appropriate form based on, again, why they're tax exempt. For example, an Illinois reseller should be providing you the CRT 61 form for Illinois. That happens to expire every 3 years. The Illinois manufacturing exemption is the ST 587. That expires every 5 years. So just an example of complexity depending on the states. And, that's what your team internally, if you're not using software or automation, should be doing on a day-to-day basis to just make sure you're getting valid certificates in place. Then, as far as once you have them in place, are you able to retrieve them? How long does that take? Like, what's your process now? Talked to a customer earlier today who said they still have paper certificates that they put in a binder alphabetically. It's 2024, almost 2025, so you can still work with paper, but almost every business is automating this now, and that's exactly what Avalara can provide. But we want you to be efficient. How quickly could you flip through that binder to find a certificate that you had? Did you vet it when you received it? Did you validate it when you received it? So many things go into it. And then obviously number four there, missing a certificate could cost much more than the taxes you failed to collect, which is that initial slide that I showed in regards to the exposure you might have based on, if and when you ever do get audited. And something, that is relatively new, that's came in 2018, 2019, and continuing to change. Almost every state and that is the graphic here, the states that are in orange. Almost every state now expects you to include tax exempt sales in your gross sales. So with the example earlier we gave, so they're going to look at the volume of sales you did in their state, taxable and non-taxable. So they expect you to remit those tax exempt sales. This is kind of breakdown on what the states expect. Why do they do that? I believe it's because they want to know all the business that's happening in their states. That can affect how they change certain, legislation going forward, like potentially change applicable tax rates on the products or services that you sell in that specific state. So there's so many things that they look into just to identify the volume of sales that you're doing in that state, which also triggers audit too. They're not looking for small dollar businesses that are doing business in their state. They're looking for big dollar sales. And that's what this graphic shows is gross sales are included in almost every state now. Whereas 10 years ago, when I started working at Avalara, that was not the case. So the landscape continues to change. And this gives you a good snapshot on, what the states are doing right now and keeping that up to date. So what about Avalara and how can we help you with the pain points and the challenges I just covered in the last 17 minutes? Well, there's a reason I'm on the call today, and that's because Avalara has a solution set and products that can help you manage these tax-exempt customers and maintain their certificates on an ongoing basis. And that's what we call Avalara Exemption Certificate Management, or short for ECM. It's a best-in-class solution where you can collect the certificates, validate them, maintain them on an ongoing basis. There's automation in place to use an AI-assisted validation tool, to use automatic email requests, which we'll get into a little bit later. But it's a powerful tool that can help you maintain those customers. It speaks to the tax engine. And of course, the Smarter Commerce team has built the connection from JDE right into Avalara with the tax engine and the exemption certificate module. So this is the end-to-end workflow, if you will. As you can see, in the center here is Avatax's tax engine, right? So all this lives in the cloud, and you connect or can connect, Smarter Commerce can connect JDE into our tax engine. JDE built by Smarter Commerce has the ability to send customer data right into ECM. Then within the exemptions module, you can maintain those certificates. And then the final decision is we know who and when and where and why to tax. So the concept of using Avalara's exemption certificate management is it's designed to be your single source of truth on not only where your certificates live, but why the software knows to exempt. So if you send us a transaction from JDE, say for customer 123, shipped to New York and Avatax, if you send us that customer data via Smarter Commerce and JDE into ECM, we know we have customer 123. We know we have a good certificate in New York. We know not to charge that customer tax. So it's the source of truth. You maintain the certificates there, but more importantly, the software knows where to exempt them based on if you have a good certificate on file at the time of invoicing. So it takes a big portion of that manual work off your plate. I'm going to show you this in a few minutes, but this is the ECM dashboard. It's built right into the Avalara portal as one of our core solutions. But as I mentioned, it's designed to be very easy to use. There's very many automated certificate things built into there as far as requesting certificates via email. There's a validation component. There's a tax research library built in. So it's all baked into the tool. And Avalara for years has been building in artificial intelligence into our solution set. And here's just a few examples on how we've already built it in. And as you all know, AI continues to get better. We're already talking about things we're going to continue to improve in the new year. And specific to exemption certificate management, that's the optical character recognition piece here on the right-hand side of the page where, we've built the software to read certificates for you. We've give you the ability to use AI assisted validation. It's artificial intelligence and our own curated content. It's all internal. We built it, but it's designed to, make you more efficient, streamline your process, save you time, reduce your risk in the exemption certificate management process. But we're continuing to build AI into our solutions. And, here's the three examples that you can use once you own Avalara ECM. There's reporting you can use. There's the ability to see where you have gaps in your customer records. For example, you might have a New York reseller, but you don't have your Pennsylvania certificate on file. That would monitor that for you. It gives you the ability to automatically request certificates based on specific um, requirements or preferences like prior to expiration, or if you have certificates that come back as invalid, the software is designed to, just reduce your time, reduce your risk, and make you more efficient. And of course, there's a validation tool that takes components of AI that we've already built, where it can, capture certificate data for you as you load it into the software. And I'll show you that in a couple of minutes here. And just to further dive into it on the ECM piece, the onus is on the seller, right? So if you are collecting the certificate, you have to make sure it's the right document. It's complicated. You have to make sure it's the right form. And that's what the software can help you with. It gives you the ability to collect digitally. It gives you the ability for your end customer to not have to deal with paper anymore, for you internally to not have to do with paper. And there's all this AI built auto responses and auto replies that you can turn on within the software based on your preferences to make sure the correspondence with your customers is always, concurrent, not gaps in the process, to make sure it's a better customer experience for your end customer where they have access to the online portal where they can upload a certificate for you. The online portal exists where you could build it into your own website as well. So not only is it better, you're more compliant, audit ready and risk averse, but it's just a better experience for your end customer in collecting those certificates from you as well. In addition to that, we've spoke to, the customer side of it, where you're collecting certificates from your customers, but, depending on your business, there's also a component where you may have to provide your own exemption certificate to your vendors or suppliers. And of course, the software can help you on either side of it or both. It can give you the ability to collect certificates from your customer, then also give you the ability to send your own certificates out to your vendors or suppliers. You can load in your vendors into the system, populate the states you want to use to send your own certificate out. And the software gives you the ability to always keep up to date on that. And like I said, it works on both sides of the house. You can use it whatever applies to you all on the customer side and the vendor side, or both. We do find that most of our users, we have close to 8,000 users of the customer exemption module. Most of them use it on the customer exemption module. About 20% use it on the vendor module as well too. So it's really comes down to if you have a big volume of vendors, it's taking a lot of time, it's painful internally. We really give you ease of use there. And then, this is how we all connect with JDE and our partner, Smarter Commerce. Smarter Commerce built the connection. They can enable the exchange between JD Edwards and Avalara, which of course includes the tax engine, which of course includes exemption certificate management. So that's already been built for you. When you sign up with Avalara, Smarter Commerce is our partner, and we work together with you, to ensure your success, regardless of the suite of solutions, that you use from our side. So I think, Jerry, I'll jump into the ECM demo right now. Let me just end the slideshow and get into my demo environment. Before I do that, Jerry, any outstanding questions we could cover right now, or are we good?
I am collecting them here, Andrew. I think we can get started with the demo, and then I'll circle back in a minute with some of the questions that have come in.
Perfect. Thank you. And then sharing the Avalara portal. Can we see it?
Yep, we can see that.
Excellent. So you are now looking at the Avalara portal. Of course, I'm in a demo environment, and like as we mentioned before, quickly, Avalara is a global end-to-end sales tax compliance solutions provider. We have 19 plus solutions. Our three core solutions live right in here in the Avalara portal. This would be the tax engine. This is what JD Edwards would connect to via Smarter Commerce set up, and you would send us transactional data, which would mean, who the customer is, shipped to, taxability of your products and services and whatnot. And then, of course, we would send back the applicable tax. We can, of course, file and remit your returns to the states, standard sales and use tax returns, streamlined sales tax returns. And then what I focus on, and of course, why we're here today, is ECM. This is the Exemption Certificate Management module, and that lives in this tab. But the reason I point that out is all three of these solutions, the tax engine, the returns module, and the exemptions module, they're all natively connected to each other. They all talk like a three-legged stool, if you will. They are their own separate subscription, but they're designed to communicate to each other. We're looking now at the ECM or Exemption Certificate Management homepage. Everything I show from this point forward, these are all the different features and functionality or the complete feature set that you get once you have the ECM subscription in place. And on the right-hand side of the page, in the insights section, this is designed to be your single source of truth. This is where you all or your teams can manage those tax-exempt customers and maintain their certificates. So think of it like a single window pane view into all my customer data and whether or not I have the certificates on file. And it gives me back data points and information that matters, like what I have that's valid. Of course, that's the goal, as we've already identified today. There's no point in having bad certificates. We want you to have valid certificates. That's the green section of the circle. Valid, of course, is the goal. You're trying to achieve that. Valid means current, active, up to date, in good standing with the states. And then obviously, the goal is to try to keep this circle dashboard as green as you can, right? The non-green for us, we would say that's your lack of compliance or your non-compliance. And obviously, as you can see in my dashboard, I'm really out of compliant here. So the software tells me, well, some could be expired and a majority could be missing. So, you've told and you've imported your customers or you've pushed them from JDE, but we don't have certificates. So like I said, you're trying to keep this as green as you can. The software tells you why they aren't compliant, different reasons. It gets more granular. But to me, the insights section really gives you guidance on where you should be spending your time. Like I said, it's your single source of truth. It's really a health check or an accountability application that empowers you to see what you have and then what you need to do in regards to those customers and their certificates. And that's exactly what the task section sets you up for on success in the short term, like today. The software is pointing out, hey, we think you need to put eyes on this. For example, I have 85 certificates expiring within 30 days. That's most likely due to end of year because a lot of certificates expire 12/31. So it's alerting me to that fact. Obviously, if these are my repeat customers, I want to get new certificates in place before the old one expires. It's giving me that data. It's telling me that without you having the burden or your own risk on reporting or going into your ERP or Excel or a binder. It's telling you all right here. Or it's telling me I have a bunch of certificates in the review queue. That means maybe we've loaded them in internally. Maybe they've come through the online portal, but they haven't been validated yet or saved yet. That alerts the software that deserves your attention. And then it tells me, well, we see all these customers, but you don't have certificates. So why would you put customers that are tax exempt in the module here without certificates? So it's alerting me that's a cause of concern for the software. So these tasks are all things that you can action on as a user within the tool. And of course, there's functionality and a feature set to help you complete these tasks, like the AI assisted validation I've told you about so many times, which I'll show in a second, like the AI automated email request that you can turn on, which I'll show. So you can complete the tasks as a user. Of course, if you need help, we have managed services available if you can't do the work, but just know if you need help there, that exists. So keep in mind, team, the insights section, the tasks section, this is pulling off of my customer database in the exemptions module. Well, how do I get the customer database in here? I obviously already have my customers in the system. You can import them in. Maybe up front you'd do that. It's a standard Excel sheet. We just need a few fields per customer record. But then on an ongoing basis, how do you get them in? Well, you can push them right from JDE, which Paul will show later. But Smarter Commerce has built the ability when you have the JD Edwards connection into Avalara for AvaTax, the portal tax engine, and the ECM module, you can push the data to us by a simple button. So you can send the data in here. It's really designed where maybe not all your users are even in ECM. You can have them stay in JD Edwards. But you have to get your customer data in here as I have already. But keep in mind, that is what the insights and the task section pulls from. So let's look at a customer. Of course, mine are loaded. There's all these filters, of course, you can search on by state and very many data points here. But you can always use the toolbar here, and I can search SMC, and any customer with SMC would pop up. So a brand new customer, here's the customer data. Would push from JD Edwards. This is your JD Edwards customer code right there. So we know who they are. So when you ping the tax engine from JD Edwards, it says, oh, this is customer SMCD1211. It's shipped to Florida. Oh, guess what? There's no Florida certificate. What's that mean? We're going to charge them tax because the software deems them to be taxable, but they're tax exempt. Okay, how do we get them tax exempt? How about you load in the certificate? This is how easy it is. This is basically option one. If you have a certificate, you just load it in. And that's what I'll do here. Pulling from my laptop if it loads here. All right, so I'm going to literally just drag in a Florida resale certificate. And you can see as long as it's one of those formats, PDF, GIF, JPEG, PNG, it'll read it, drop it in. Software scanning it. First to make sure it's no virus or it's not a bad file. Now it is using the AI assisted validation that Avalara built. It's trying to read the form. It's trying to pull off data that matters, like, what state is it? It does that through optical character recognition. And you see it did that while it was talking. To me, this is one of the most innovative parts of the new tool. Our old tools could not do this. But you basically can load in certificates, take a sip of your chai tea, and then wait a second, and the software did all of the work for me. I didn't manually enter any of this data. It read Florida, check, resale, check, the state ID, check, the expiration. That's everything you need for a good certificate. There's additional fields that you can use if you want to apply it to maybe, a specific sales rep that you put in, like the reference number, like, oh, this was customer that was onboarded by, Andrew. I would attach to that. So there's at least data points that you can use if you want. But at the end of the day, the software did all the work. It checked all the boxes, and I just have to save it as valid. What I love about it is you don't need to be a tax expert now. You just make sure there's no gaps in these fields here, and then give it the final save. And that was just an example of Florida, but this closes the loop. So again, source of truth, certificate lives here now, the one we just loaded in. And now the software knows to exempt this customer in Florida, and it would until the end of the year. That's how easy you can get certificates in the system. And I loaded in a Florida one. You can load in anything there. The multi-state form works. The streamlined sales tax state form works. Specific state forms work. You can load in anything. If the software says, you know what, this isn't adding up, you can still make the final decision. You can save it as invalid or valid. That's up to you as a user or, of course, our managed services team. So that's one feature. If you have it, it's easy. You load it in. Say you don't have it, you can email your customer from ECM or from JDE, which Paul will show in a second. I don't have access to JDE environment, but I'll show it here. It's essentially the same thing. But let's just say we onboard the customer and we need their certificate. You can send them an email. You can put your logo in the email. You can word the email to say what you prefer, whatever you want. Like, hey, customer, we understand you're tax exempt, no problem. We need to get your certificate. That's what the states expect. And what's great about Avalara's portal here is we have all these different exempt reasons built in. If you know this up front, you can pick it. You don't have to. Some of these may apply to you, some won't. This is also a setting. You could remove them if you wanted. But there's many reasons a business can be exempt. And I show that so you know this is not a G drive. This is an intuitive tool that we've built designed to empower you to make the right decisions on behalf of the business. So what we just did right there was we told the software, hey, we need a certificate from this customer. And it generated an email. Whether you do that from here or JD Edwards, it produces the same result, which is an email to the customer. And I will show you what that email looks like right now. This is the email I just sent from the ECM software. See, 2:39 my time. This would be what your customer sees. You can put your logo in there. You can word this how you want, but you're basically, giving them notification that, okay, we appreciate your business. We, of course, understand that you are tax exempt, but we need to be compliant. And compliant means having a good, new, active, valid certificate on file when we invoice you. And it even shows them, hey, we need your Illinois one, but guess what? Florida's coming up on expiration, so it's a complete tool. Again, this is what your customer sees. This is their experience. Then all they have to do is click that link that's embedded in the email, and it takes them here. This is the online portal. This is all part of Avalara's ECM subscription. You get access to this. This is what I mentioned earlier before about one of the challenges. If your customers are pushing back about, well, we don't have a form, look how easy this is. You just send them here. They can upload or fill out a certificate literally in 5 seconds. They could do this from their phone. Again, this is part of your software subscription. This is free for them. This is your customer. This is what they do. They can even create a login if they want. Doesn't matter to us. But if they want to create a login, they would even see the certificates they have on file with you. We had their business information from the customer data record from JD Edwards. So that's pre-filled on the form. It saves them time. Your business information would be pre-filled on the form. It saves you all time. Of course, it will be your software that you implemented and set up. Then, of course, the value of Avalara, or one of the values, is we know what the form is. we send them the CRT 61, which in our opinion, in our tax research team and the research they've done over the last 2 decades, this is what we believe Illinois wants to receive, the CRT 61. They are in the form right now. No need to print, fill out, sign it, scan it, email it back in. That whole process, they do that right now. They're in the form. The software knows what's required of Illinois. The fields that are required, they're not our fields that are required. It's not our requirements, not your business requirements. It's not Smarter Commerce's requirements. This is the state of Illinois' requirements. They have to give us this information because that's what we know the state needs. They can't advance until they do. Then once they do, which ensures they didn't skip anything, they just sign this electronically. Again, this is mobile optimized. They could do this from their phone. That's how quick they can create a certificate. It generates a copy of them for them right here. In my experience, I've talked to probably thousands of business, had this conversation 5,000 times. A lot of these exempt businesses, these resellers, they don't care about the form. All they care about is you not charging them tax. That's when you hear from them, like after you invoice them. Well, you want to get it up front because you care if you have these tax exempt customers. And now this is your proof to Illinois and why you get to exempt them. And you can have that flow back in. And there is the Illinois certificate. Source of truth, again, the one they just filled out, that Alexa just signed, and now it lives here. And now the software knows to not send any tax back to JD Edwards when this customer number comes in, and in Illinois and in Florida. So that's the full end-to-end workflow in regards to how you get certificates in, how the software maintains them. And then I'll touch on two more things, Jerry, and then you'll see that depending on the states you're in, depending on the exemption reason, they're all different. And that's all baked into the settings. You don't need to remember Illinois expires every 3 years. That's all built in. So depending, you have access to all these features here. Depending on who you deal with, like for example, resellers, we know that Arizona is the 5000A form. We know that California is the 230. We know that Florida is a state issued cert that expires at the end of the year. We know that Connecticut's a state issued cert expires in 3 years. We know that Idaho's the ST 101 expires in 3 years. Illinois, the CRT 61 expires in 3 years. That's just resale. So we take that complexity off your plate. You get access to all this functionality. And one of them is, as I mentioned before, automatic email requests that we've built in. You can turn this on to maintain certificates in an ongoing basis. So if you're in states that expire all the time, you want to give your customers a warning. You could give them a 45-day notice that you need a new certificate. So what the system does is you check that box and it looks at customers with a good email, or with any email, actually an email on file in the customer data. It looks to see if they have a certificate. And if there is one 45 days out from expiring, it will send them an email prompting them to give you a new certificate. It's a huge time saver. You can send auto requests on top of that. So if they don't reply to you, you could send them 4 more. So the reality is you could bug them via email up to 5 times to give you a new certificate, designed to put the onus on them, telling them, hey, we need your certificate so we can continue to exempt you from tax and save you time and having to run reports in your Excel sheet or flip through your binders or however you do it now, and just takes the risk and burden off you. And then, we've talked about source of truth, future state. If you use the tool and your certificates live here, anybody can access it. Anybody in your system. Avalara users are unlimited. It doesn't matter to us. I have, over 500 certificates. They're all in here. Well, maybe I need to find one. Maybe we'll use that original example. Maybe California audits me. I can type California and 1 second later apply that filter. I just produced every California certificate I have on file, all 35. I can pull them all out as PDFs. They won't want all of them, as we know. They're going to look at specific invoices and they're going to say, oh, I need um, the exemption for this invoice. So you go in the tax engine, you look and you say, okay, that was cert ID 13532. You search on it and find it. Or you can search on customer detail, their JD Edwards number, whatever you need. You can get as granular as you want, build the report you need to see, find the certificates that they need to see, and pull them out as PDFs and send them on the way. So the concept of the exemption certificate management tool, like we spoke to the challenges, it's designed to solve those pain points you have, give you the ability to become more efficient, more effective in your process, and be able to have a compliant way in place to maintain these certificates in a valid, forward-looking fashion, as you work and continue to work with these tax-exempt customers. So high level, that was ECM in a real quick snippet. Paul can show you some things that they have built within JD Edwards that just kind of backs up what I've already showed so far today. Whenever you're ready, Paul.
Yeah, okay.
I see your desktop. All right, it's slowly loading. All right, excellent. Thank you.
Okay, so this is the JD Edwards. Everybody can see my screen.
I can, yes.
Okay, perfect. So this is now what is gonna show here. It's the address book where you manage your customers, and I have 1368, which is Acme, and from here we have a new option to connect directly to the Avalara ECM. So this will uh, allow to see on this screen, you can see all the certificates that you have on the other side, on the Avalara cloud. So we have two certificates for this particular customer, and you can see the expiration date, you can see the status, which is very important. And actually, you can see the document by itself, just clicking here, view exemption certificate, and you can see the PDF.
So even though the certificate was loaded into ECM, it started there, you all built the ability where they can see it right in JD Edwards.
Exactly. Yeah.
Perfect.
And then we can just switch back to just to confirm that on the AvaTax, we have the same customer, 1368, and we have this is what just we you just show it. We have two
Yep.
certificates, and there's one missing zone or state, so you need to be aware that is missing. Anyway, so this is online real time. The information from the ECM, it's now at your handy in your JD Edwards address book. So let me show you another example. Yes, on a daily basis, maybe you have a new customer that's does not exist on the Avalara side. So let me just go back really quick. If we try to search 222, that customer is not yet on the ECM side.
Perfect.
So what about if you just go here and select again Avalara ECM?
So like you're onboarding a new customer.
Exactly.
Perfect.
So the system will prompt to you, do you want to upload it? Yes. Maybe not, but yeah, in this case, of course. And of course, because this is new, the screen looks empty. There is no certificates to display. Yeah. But also you can request from here, upload the certificates. So you just click send, and we will have the same functionality that was shown just a few minutes ago.
So whether you send the request from ECM like I did, or whether you send the request from
Exactly.
JD Edwards like you just did, it's the exact same process.
Exactly. So then we will
Perfect.
receive the notification, and do the same, exactly the same, pretty much the same steps. Um, just really quick show you the.
Probably just still processing.
Yeah, it will be in a minute.
Check your you sent it to you? I
Yeah,
forgot what you okay, good. Yeah, but regardless, I already showed that too, Paul, right?
yeah,
So it's the
exactly.
exact same process. You can initiate it from JD
Yeah,
Edwards. There it is. Or you
yeah.
can
This is
initiate it from
exactly.
ECM. Yep.
It,
Perfect.
just- it's, it will it will be a self-service directly. It will take you to the Avalara
Exactly.
portal, and then the customer. Yeah, this is the information from your address book, and you can add. You can do the same. Just
Exactly.
select, in this case, the state, the reason, because it was a general request. And then you can upload directly. You can fill out the specific form for Florida, or you can just uh,
Yep. And in that case, Florida is one of those that they can't fill it out, so they just load it in there.
exactly, or you can just upload directly from your local,
Exactly. Exactly.
and that's exactly the same process, and you're done. And of course,
So with,
it's pending
yep,
status because it needs to be reviewed by someone responsible for that, for the tax department, from the customer company, and that's all.
perfect. So basically everything I showed, you all built in to JD Edwards,
Yep.
so you don't have to, keep flipping back and forth between the system.
Automatically, the two worlds are now synchronized. As you can see, now we have the customer 222 Acme ECM Ltd, right? And this is the certificate that I just uploaded, which is
In pending status. Perfect. Perfect. And then you'd go into the review queue and you could review it. Yep.
exactly, yeah. Yeah, you can see. Now your JD Edwards ERP back office now is synchronized automatically with the ECM for all your customers. So that's what the connector is doing from the JD Edwards, from the Smart Commerce, and connecting the JD Edwards world with the ECM module specifically.
Excellent.
So
Thanks,
that's
Paul.
it from my side.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Simple,
Yeah, so
really
just
simple,
kind of
easy.
closes the loop on, how ECM is connected into JD Edwards that, the Smarter Commerce team has built to really, streamline the whole process for you.
Yeah,
Right.
appreciate you walking through that, Paul. Thank you. Andrew, we do have a couple of questions here that maybe we want to work through quickly. I think we've got 5 minutes on the clock here.
Sure.
Um, And Paul, Andrew, you guys jump in, depending on if you think you're best fit for the question. But is it possible that, when you're loading in customers or importing customers, do customers have to do that one by one, or can they have some kind of a mass upload capability for creating customers in ECM?
Out of the box, there is an ECM import template where you could export them out, JD Edwards, and then put them into an import template. That's all I know about in doing it in mass. Perhaps Paul knows if there's a different way, but I think it's just you can push it one at a
Right.
time right now.
Yeah, yeah. In spreadsheet to upload it in a bulk fashion,
Yeah.
the
Yep. So
entire the entire customer base from your ERP.
so it'd have to be through the import.
Correct.
And then yeah, so if you can send a customer one at a time like he just showed, or you want to do it in bulk, there is no like
New
bulk button.
customers.
That's pretty
Hmm.
common too. I don't see that in a lot of ERPs, so it's typically up front you do the import and via
Correct.
Excel. Yep.
And if I can
Excellent.
jump in here, hi Andrew, everybody. Um, so the first bulk upload is the most gigantic to do, and usually it's a one-time affair unless the customer absorbs another company and they have to do it again
Exactly.
for another company. And so that's the typical procedure we follow. And then our connector is the net change process, right? You can continue adding new ones in the ERP, and now they're going to be created with the connector on a per case basis and also the updates. We are also working right now on using the Avalara APIs to do the same bulk upload, but from that perspective. And that may become part of a UBE within JDLers. Not at the moment, but we have the capability of making a mass upload through that API using external tools, right? Not JDLers, external tools.
Sure.
And
So it's on the
Understood.
roadmap. It's on the roadmap to potentially
it's
be
on the
able to do that.
roadmap, and it
Okay.
may become part of JDLers, but honestly, we have not seen yet the need to go in that direction because most customers, let me say 99% of the customers, only do one bulk upload in the lifetime of the product, which is at the beginning of the project. And then they never do it again.
Makes sense.
Understood. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, in the instance, we've got another question that came in. I think it's describing the following scenario of a customer working on a sales order, realizes the customer is not tax exempt for that particular order, sends the customer an email to upload a certificate, and the customer does upload that. How quickly does Avalara typically validate that certificate and then therefore have that reflected in JD Edwards, so that
Sure.
they could continue with the sales order and not get charged tax, basically?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, as soon as our system, as soon as it says valid, like I showed, it will exempt tax. As far as um, the certificate they upload, I think I showed an Illinois one. There is settings in the Avalara portal where when they're in that portal, you know it's the right state, it's the right form. They can't skip any of the steps. They have to sign it. You can set up the portal to accept those in back in real time. That's a business decision. That way you can like exempt them right away so you don't lose the sale. But there's other scenarios like if they're just uploading something, you probably want to review that, which is what Paul showed before, because they could upload anything, right? So my typical recommendation is if they use the online portal, if it's a fillable certificate that we have, that you auto accept it back in good faith, so you can exempt right away. But there is no
Yeah.
time lapse. It's only based on your business rule, which you can set up within the software.
And
Excellent.
also important to know, we have a feature in our connector that is aware of that particular scenario. And if the customer enables that constant, the order is going to go on hold, waiting for the certificate. And once the certificate arrives, through a recursive process that is interrogating Avalara periodically, it will release the whole code and then the order can proceed. As long as it doesn't exceed that threshold that the customer sets, let's say 5 days maximum. So if the end customer has not submitted a certificate within 5 days, the order will proceed taxed, right? So, and that can be made part of communications and tell the customer you have 5 days to upload a certificate, but now you are on hold. We are not delivering anything until you submit. And that works within JDLers. It's part of the ECM connector. And if customers like the way we implemented that, it's a very convenient way to address the problem.
Excellent. Thank you, Jorge. All right, folks. Appreciate the couple of questions we got to go through there. I know we're at time. I want to respect everyone's commitment here. Again, thank you to Paul and Andrew for walking us through a quick demo there, for Jorge for jumping in and helping us with some of these questions. We're going to go ahead and wrap up here, folks. If there's any unanswered questions, we'd be more than happy to reach out. And as a reminder, we will be posting the recording of this webinar online for everyone to access in the future. Thank you guys again for your time. Have a great rest of your week.